I have to admit, I fell down a bit of a rabbit hole this morning.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, I was scrolling through social media doom scrolling, if we're being totally honest. And I must have passed, I don't know, 5 or 6 posts about Stoicism in like 2 minutes. It is absolutely everywhere right now.
It really is.
It's in the gym, it's in the boardroom, it's probably on a coffee mug in your kitchen cabinet.
It has definitely become the philosophy of choice for the modern era. I think it speaks to a certain hustle culture anxiety we all have.
Totally. But the more I see it, the more I start to wonder if we're actually getting it right. Because the vibe I get from all these posts is very specific. When you picture a Stoic, you have this image of a guy, and it's usually a guy who is just unshakable. He's emotionless. He's probably sitting in an ice bath, staring blankly ahead, completely detached from all the chaos of the world.
Right.
It's this Terminator version of philosophy where you just, turn off your feelings switch.
I'm a rock, I'm an island.
Exactly. And today we're diving into a source, a really sharp essay that argues this image isn't just a little bit wrong, it's what it calls a stubborn misunderstanding that completely invalidates the whole philosophy.
And that's really the core of what we're unpacking today. The source argues that we've domesticated Stoicism. We've turned it into a life hack for avoidance.
A life hack for avoidance, I like that.
Yeah, we think it's about shutting the door, turning your back on the world, and treating reality like it's just noisy garbage that we're too, enlightened to deal with.
Which is a comforting thought, right? The idea that I don't have to deal with this because, I'm a Stoic.
It is comforting, but it's dangerous. So the mission of this deep dive is to really debunk that idea. We need to figure out, are you using philosophy to stand firm in the world? Or are you just using a fancy ancient name to justify hiding from life?
I think a lot of this stems from that one famous idea we hear all the time, only care about what you can control. It's sort of the bumper sticker version of Stoicism.
It is. And that is what the source calls the half-quote problem. We take that little snippet and we use it to build a wall around ourselves. I can't control the news, so I'll ignore it. I can't control my boss, so I'll just disengage. But true Stoicism isn't about building walls.
So let's get into the mechanics of how we get this so wrong. The essay brings up a concept it calls the quiet room fallacy. And I have to say, I felt very seen by this part.
I think we all do. It's a scenario many of us know intimately. The world feels too loud, the news is depressing, work is stressful. So what do?
You retreat.
You cut off social media. You stop replying to texts. You retreat into a quiet, minimalist room. Maybe you meditate. You reduce all your communication down to absolute zero. And suddenly, you feel calm.
And that feels like a win. You sit there and you think, look at me, I've mastered my emotions. I am peaceful. I am Stoic.
But the source asks a really piercing question here. Are you actually peaceful? Or are you just empty? The argument is that this isn't peace. It's just the absence of stimulation. It's a calmness achieved by subtraction. You haven't become stronger. You've just removed all the weights.
That's a critical distinction. Peace versus vacancy.
Precisely. The source warns that if you do this, you usually find that inside it's not actually quieter. It's just the emptiness of someone using retreat to avoid living. You haven't solved the problem. You've just evicted the residents. You're hiding, not living.
This leads to my favorite part of the research, which is the math. The author introduces this 22-hour reality check. It's such a simple way to look at it, but it kind of destroys that whole quiet room strategy.
It really does. So let's break down a typical day for someone trying to be a modern Stoic. Let's say you're incredibly disciplined. You wake up at 5 a.m., you meditate for 30 minutes, you read Marcus Aurelius, or you journal for an hour.
Okay.
Maybe you sit in silence for another 30 minutes before bed. That's 2 hours of purely Stoic practice.
Which honestly is impressive. If you're doing 2 hours of mindfulness a day, you're in the top 1% of disciplined people.
Absolutely. But the source asks, what about the other 22 hours?
Right. The other 22 hours, that's the commute. That's the annoying coworker who chews too loudly.
Yeah.
That's the toddler screaming because you cut their toast into triangles instead of squares. That's the traffic jam.
Exactly. That is life. And the source makes a brutal point here. If your version of Stoicism only works during those 2 quiet hours, it is not Stoicism, it is just resting.
Ouch. That hits hard. So if I crumble the second I step out of my meditation room, the meditation didn't actually work.
Or rather, the meditation was just a hobby. It was a spa treatment for your brain. True Stoicism isn't designed for the quiet room. It's designed for the noise. It has to withstand the pressure of those other 22 hours.
Right.
If it can't keep your character intact when things go wrong, it's basically useless.
So where does this desire to hide come from? Because clearly people are drawn to Stoicism specifically because they want an escape hatch. We want out of the noise.
Well, context matters here. The author points out that this misunderstanding isn't random. It comes from exhaustion. We are tired.
Yeah.
We are constantly overstimulated by the comparison economy on social media, the 24-hour news cycle, the constant pings on our phones. So when we hear a philosophy say, focus on the inside, our exhausted brains interpret that as run away from the outside.
It's a survival mechanism. We are looking for a permission slip to check out. Doctor's orders, I need to go live in a cave.
We are. But here's where the history corrects us, and I love this part of the source material. It makes a very strong point. The founders of Stoicism, the big three as we call them, did not live in quiet rooms. They didn't have the luxury of checking out.
Yeah, let's talk about them for a minute, because I think we visualize these guys as like monks in a monastery floating above the ground, but that's not the reality at all.
Not even close. Take Marcus Aurelius. He is the poster child for Stoicism. But he didn't write his famous meditations while sitting in some garden sanctuary sipping herbal tea. He was the emperor of Rome.
And correct me if I'm wrong, but he wasn't emperor during a golden age of peace and prosperity, was he?
Far from it. He had a nightmare reign. He was dealing with the Antonine Plague, which was wiping out a huge percentage of the population. I mean, literally millions of people dying around him.
Wow.
He was fighting brutal wars on the Danube borders for years. He was dealing with political betrayal within his own circle, including a coup attempt by one of his closest generals.
So he's writing these journals. Where?
Intense on the front lines, in damp, cold military camps. He wrote those journals to keep himself sane while he was doing his job. He couldn't just say, you know what, Rome is too loud, I'm gonna go live in a cave.
Right, sorry guys, this plague is outside my circle of control, so I'm out. Good luck with the empire.
He would have been assassinated, or Rome would have fallen. He didn't have a choice. Then you have Seneca. He wasn't speaking out calmness from a safe distance. He was in the center of Nero's court, one of the most dangerous, volatile political environments in human history.
Nero. That's the fiddle while Rome burns gang. Not exactly a stable block.
Literally unstable. Seneca faced the constant threat of execution. Every day he walked into court, he didn't know if he was walking out alive. He had to navigate power, corruption, and just madness. And finally, you have Epictetus. A slave who was physically disabled, his leg was broken by his master. He had zero control over his physical circumstances for much of his life. He taught his students not how to vanish from society, but how to live in a society that could be brutal without letting that society bend their character.
So the big takeaway here is that Stoicism wasn't born in peacetime. It wasn't a luxury belief.
No, it was born in conflict. It was battlefield armor. The source makes this beautiful point. If you remove the challenge, you remove the meaning of the philosophy. It's like learning to swim on dry land. If you never get in the water, you aren't a swimmer. And if you never deal with difficult people or difficult situations, you aren't a Stoic.
This brings us to a really tricky area, though. The confusion between being calm and just, not caring. Because from the outside, they can look the same.
Totally.
You see a guy blank-faced at a funeral or during a crisis, and you think, is he a Stoic or is he a sociopath?
This is the apathy versus equanimity debate. And the source argues this is the most dangerous confusion of all. We see someone who doesn't react to drama, and we call them Stoic. But are they disciplined? Or are they just hiding?
How do we tell the difference? Is there a litmus test for Stoic versus just checked out?
The text offers some really sharp definitions. Not reacting is discipline. That's good. That means you feel the impulse, you want to scream, you want to cry, but you control the output because it serves a purpose. But not caring, that's avoidance, that's bad.
So feeling the emotion is part of the deal.
Absolutely. The Stoics weren't robots. They felt grief, anger, fear. I mean, Marcus Aurelius cried. Seneca grieved. But they didn't let those emotions dictate their actions. Think about not expressing something. If you don't express an emotion because speaking now would do harm, that is wisdom.
Okay.
But if you don't express it because you're afraid of the conflict, that is cowardice.
Wow, so it's all about the motivation behind the silence.
Seneca actually warned about this explicitly. He said we have to be careful not to confuse peace with numbness. Peace is seeing clearly. You see the problem, you feel the emotion, but you aren't dragged away by it. Numbness is refusing to see, because if you saw the problem, you'd be forced to act.
That's the sedative effect the source talks about, right? Using philosophy like a drug.
Exactly. Tired people, and we are all tired sometimes, use Stoicism as a sedative. We use it to reduce contact, reduce emotion, reduce expectation. We want to numb the pain of being alive. And in small doses, sure, we all need rest. But if that becomes the goal, then we have flipped the philosophy upside down.
Because the goal isn't to make the world smaller.
No. The goal is to make your inner self strong enough to endure the world as it is. It's a tonic, not a sedative. It's supposed to make you stronger, not sleepier.
So let's pivot to the core conflict here, because I think this is where people really get stuck. The idea of control versus responsibility. This feels like the part where the rubber meets the road.
It is. This is the hardest part of the philosophy to actually live out.
Because the classic Stoic line, the dichotomy of control, says some things are up to us and some things aren't. And usually people interpret that as, well, I can't control it, so it's not my problem. The source seems to really hate that interpretation.
It hates it because it's lazy. It reframes the question entirely. Marcus Aurelius didn't ask, how can the world be less annoying so I can be happy? He asked, how can I not become a worse person just because the world is annoying?
That's a massive shift. It's not about changing the external, it's about protecting the internal quality.
And Epictetus uses the actor analogy, which I find incredibly helpful here. He says, look, you don't choose the role you are given in this play. Maybe you're a parent, a leader, a citizen. You don't write the script. You didn't choose the other actors. But you choose how to play the role.
So you can't just walk off stage because you don't like the plot.
Right. You cannot abandon the role just because it's hard. The source lists specific duties. You're a citizen, you're a colleague, you are a neighbor. You cannot use Stoicism as an excuse to neglect these duties. If you see injustice, you can't just say, well, the injustice isn't in my control, so I'll just sit here and breathe.
But showing up carries risk. I mean, if I engage as a citizen or a parent, I might get hurt. I might get misunderstood. If I speak up at work, I might get fired. That's scary.
And that is the crux of it. The source notes that Stoics don't choose safety as their highest value. They choose character. And character is only forged in the furnace of human interaction.
In the furnace, I like that.
You can't develop patience if no one is testing your nerves. You can't develop justice if you never face injustice. You cannot develop courage if you are never afraid.
So let's apply this. The source gives us a litmus test. 2 real-world scenarios to see if we're being real Stoics or fake Stoics. I want to walk through these because they're very relatable.
Let's do it.
Okay, scenario A, workplace injustice. We're not talking about a major crime here, but a systemic, small injustice. Maybe a boss who steals credit or a policy that unfairly targets a specific group of people.
Okay. The fake Stoic looks at this and says, well, the system is broken, that's not in my control, I can't fix the company culture, so I'll just stay zen, keep my head down and collect my paycheck. I am above this.
Which, let's be honest, sounds reasonable. It protects your peace, it protects your income, it feels like wisdom.
It protects your comfort, not your peace. The source argues this is actually trading character for safety. You are silently assenting to something you know is wrong. You are letting your character erode to keep your salary safe.
So what does the real Stoic do? Do they flip the table and quit?
No, and that's the nuance. The real Stoic speaks up, but, and this is key, they don't do it with rage. They don't do it screaming. They do it with clarity. They accept that they might not change the outcome, the boss might ignore them, the policy might stay, but they know they must speak to maintain their own integrity. That action is their responsibility.
So the action is the responsibility, the outcome is the external.
Exactly. You do the right thing because it's the right thing, not because you are guaranteed to win. You play the role of good colleague or just leader to the best of your ability, regardless of the plot twists.
Okay, scenario B, toxic relationships. You're with a partner or a friend who manipulates boundaries, gaslights you, or is just emotionally draining.
The fake Stoic endures it. They say, I won't let external things affect me. I am a mountain. Their insults are just wind. I can take it. They stay in a bad situation to prove how tough they are.
Or to avoid the messy conflict of a breakup. It's easier to be a mountain than to pack your bags and find a new apartment.
Precisely. The real Stoic realizes that while they can endure anything, they also have a duty to their own character and self-respect. They set clear boundaries. They say, this is not acceptable. And if those boundaries are crossed, they leave.
They actually leave. I thought Stoics just endured everything.
They endure what is necessary, not what is abusive. They leave, but they don't leave out of anger. They don't leave to punish the other person. They leave because staying is no longer the right action. It no longer aligns with the person they are trying to be.
That's a powerful distinction. So in both cases, the fake Stoic avoids conflict to feel safe. The real Stoic engages or leaves to preserve their character.
It's about being active versus being passive. The fake Stoic is passive under the guise of wisdom. The real Stoic is active, even if that activity is calm.
But this brings up the fear factor. If we stop retreating, if we actually step into the ring, how do we not get crushed? Because the world is heavy. If I care about the work and I care about the relationship and it all goes south, that hurts.
And that is the ultimate question. How to stand firm without getting shattered. The source explains that the Stoic distinction is not, I don't feel pain. It is, I don't let pain dictate my next move.
Pain is information, not a command.
Yes. The source uses a hurricane metaphor, inspired by Seneca. We don't look for a life without storms. That's impossible. We look for a self that doesn't get blown off course by the storm.
We are looking for an axis.
An internal axis. Think of the eye of the storm. The chaos is swirling around you, the bills, the arguments, the health scares, but the center is stable. And this brings us back to the practical habits we talked about at the beginning.
The meditation, the journaling.
Right. You can turn off social media, but not to hide. You do it to focus your mind so you can go back out there. You can remain silent, but not out of fear. You do it out of wisdom, to listen better so you can act better.
It's the intention behind the action that changes everything.
Completely. Stoicism provides that axis so that when you're in the noise, when you're in the argument, when you're in the crisis, you don't lose yourself. You are still you. You aren't reacting blindly. You are responding intentionally. You aren't the debris flying around in the wind. You are the thing standing still.
So to summarize what we've dug into today, Stoicism isn't a permission slip to check out of life. It's not a get-out-of-jail-free card for your responsibilities.
No. It is a tool for staying in the game without losing yourself. It's for the person who has to lead, who has to parent, who has to work, who has to deal with the messiness of being human. It is a philosophy of engagement, not retreat.
It's not about the empty room. It's about the crowded street.
And that leads us to the final thought from the source material. It's a question I think we should all sit with for a bit.
Lay it on us.
When you say, I choose Stoicism, ask yourself this. Are you using it to stand tall in the world? Or are you just using it to validate your decision to quit the responsibilities you no longer want to carry?
That is uncomfortable, but necessary.
Very necessary.
Thank you for listening to this deep dive. Go out there, face the noise, and we will catch you next time.